RiseAbsorb is redefining what growers expect from phosphate fertilizer. Backed by data and built for performance, RiseAbsorb helps reduce phosphorus losses, improve uptake, and boost ROI without increasing input costs. Join the next wave of growers switching to the next generation of phosphorus fertilizers by visiting phospholutions.com.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to Real Agriculture. Today, we are going to dive into the business of drone application, specifically the status of fungicide and herbicide application in field crops. It's a business that's changing at an incredible speed, and a big part of the story is drones' ability to travel faster during application. It will be a game changer, according to my guest. To talk about what's happening with the technology, I'm joined now by Jason Deveau, OMAFA's Applied Technology Specialist. We also know him as the Spray Guy. Hi, Jason. Hey, thanks for stopping by.
Anytime, Bern. Good to see you.
Now, we talked at the Southwest Ag Conference. You delivered an excellent presentation on, where we're going with drone technology and application. The thing that stood out for me was the pace of change. The challenge for researchers like you and the CFIA, to keep up with the technology and provide the insight required, to effectively use and regulate drones. You've been working on this 5 years. The pace of change has been incredible.
It has. I mean, we've gone from a 10-liter drone to most recently I laid eyes on a 150-liter drone. And you're quite right. Technology comes at an outrageous pace. You've got your early adopters. Research trails behind that trying to figure it out, but we'll never keep up with the early adopters. And regulatory, well, I think we all know they're going to be trailing behind the research.
No, yeah, I used to say, talk about some of the technology changes here. You talked about, DJI 100, 100 liters, 72 kilometers per hour, speed and payload. Just chasing the technology must be a job in itself.
Yeah, it's almost unfair. You just start to get a sense of what these things are doing, and it's not like they're just changing pinstripes on these. We've gone from conventional hydraulic nozzles, which we have a good idea how they work, to rotary atomizers, which just last week at an event I saw 9 different designs, and they all do very different things. The weight of the drone means it flies differently, it changes its productivity, and the speed. Well, we'll leave that for the end of the interview, but the speed is what really turns everything on its ear.
Yeah, and there's also, I guess, new people in the space, lack of understanding about how to effectively apply the technology to spray applications. How troublesome is that?
It's a spectrum. It's a gold rush of new people entering agriculture, which, out of context would be a fantastic thing to say. Hey, we're getting new people interested in crop protection. Unfortunately, a lot of the new people interested in crop protection have never had any exposure to agriculture, have not entered through pesticide education training. They've just managed to scrape up $100,000 and they've got a drone and a trailer and they'd like to spray for you. Now, before that sounds doom and gloom, there are also a lot of people out there that are quite capable, are looking to do a good job and have a great foundation of knowledge. But it's that whole spectrum, Bern. You just don't know. And at this recent event I was at, the drone end user meeting in Kansas City, one of the first talks I heard was, what is a pesticide? That was the opening slide, which is a little scary. And I overheard 2 people talking in the hall who said, yeah, I always wondered what the difference between a fungicide and a herbicide was. So, that doesn't give you a warm fuzzy. On the other hand, there are operators there in their 3rd year that really understood the importance of doing the best job they can. Yeah. So it's all over the board.
Hey, before we go on, I want to touch on the status of drone spray application in Canada. Where are we? Legal, label, registrations? Because as I say, this is going to drive our conversation.
Yeah, well, it's a simple answer. We still don't have agricultural crop protection products registered for drones. I mean, we do have a few out there, but they're not the ones you're talking about. However, there have been some discussions led by the PMRA where each province has been asked to answer some hypotheticals. What if we suddenly allowed drones to fly and spray pesticides, and our policies for aircraft were what we used to guide that? And each province has responded. So, this is the first time, to my knowledge, they've stepped up and said, we have a lot of data. Our confidence is growing. Let's talk about legalizing this. So it's progress. It really is.
Let's talk about where we sit here in 2026, and we'll talk more about, I guess, what might come in the year. But from an application perspective, what are the challenges that you have to confront here? And I've got a list here, and I want to talk about them. But I mean, we've always talked about that downwash. It's so much different from a drone to a helicopter to a plane.
Yeah, and in fact, just before you rang me up, I was writing an article on that very thing. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been just like everyone else saying that the one thing that differentiates a drone from any other kind of application technology is the downwash. I'm even tired of hearing myself say it. And then at the end of last year, something really wild happened. We got our hands on a DJI T100, which is bigger, heavier, faster. And I made the mistake of assuming, which no good scientist should ever do. But after 4 or 5 years of work, I had some sense of what we were going to see, and we didn't. Once the drone achieved about 13 meters a second, 30, 35 kilometers an hour-ish, the swath stopped changing. Now, prior to that downwash did all kinds of crazy and unpredictable things. But at that point, the drone was flying so fast that the downwash was aimed essentially straight back or near enough. And this is just a hypothesis, it's possible that drone has achieved effective translational lift. That means the air is moving over it just like a helicopter. If that's the case, it's a game changer. It would mean free productivity. And I think we both know nothing's free. So next year's research is going to look at what this high-speed application really does to spray, whether it's advisable or not. It's just turned everything on its head.
Yeah. No, I mean, that swath was always the challenge, right? I mean, trying to determine the width, the consistency of it. But yet what you're saying here is if we can speed up those drones, that is a variable that may be something that we...
How'd you like to scoop my article? I can do that right now. While I was in Kansas City, I dropped this theory on a room of people that politely looked back at me with skepticism, and I don't blame them. I'm not an ag engineer, despite what people think, but I know what I saw. After I laid this theory out there, I was approached by some Brazilian researchers who said, I saw the same thing. The T100 swathed out. The swath did not change after a certain speed. And then I met Nino Carvalho. And Nino and his son Emilio decided they didn't want to wait for anybody. And they hooked a boom up onto the front of their drone and flew it at that speed. Now, if you measure a swath, one of the things you look for is consistency, the coefficient of variation. If you can get 15, 20%, you're doing pretty good. And a boom sprayer, which I guess would be the best example we have, you can get 10, 15%. Well, they saw 9% coefficient of variation, and I said, I don't believe it. And then they showed me the third-party string tests, which is what we use for aircraft. And they did it. It was a smooth, even, uniform swath sticking out in front of the drone, laying that spray down like a sheet before any downwash ever got near it. And it was exciting because I had already drawn pictures of this on an envelope, and then he showed me the actual drone.
Wow. Now, if you can ground truth this summer, 2026,
yeah.
I mean, give me a path forward here. How does this change the game?
Differentiation. Would you spray a cornfield with an air blast sprayer? Actually, that's a bad example. I know some sweet corn guys that do. You shouldn't. Depending on the job you have in mind, you pick the right tool for the job. I think this is the beginning of drone differentiation. If you want to blow, a column of spray into a dense canopy like corn or an apple tree, then having all those nozzles under the drone spraying straight down and moving slowly at high volume, that makes good sense. But if you want to go ripping across a broad acre field, laying down, a pre-emerge or a fungicide in soybean, maybe, right? This is all hypothetical. Then perhaps one of these big drones flying really fast with a front-mounted horizontal boom will afford you the best productivity and the most uniform coverage. So depending on your job, which one are you going to buy? Depends what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
So a drone is not a drone is not a drone.
And you've already seen some productivity stuff, some performance. The T100, for example, is at that speed, comparable to a ground rig from a productivity perspective.
Well, this might not make people happy. I've built a productivity calculator based on working with a lot of people. It isn't just the me show. This is not done in a vacuum. I'd say there are about a dozen people that are really pushing this forward and gathering up all the things that they've learned. I came up with this productivity calculator. And I would suggest that a medium-sized drone like a T50 could do fungicide in a field 25 acres an hour, which, honestly, you're going to have to think long and hard about. But what we're seeing is that a herbicide will spread out further than fungicide will in a crop. Gives you extra productivity. So I'm going to say 40 acres an hour. When we go to the big drones, and this has to be ground truthed, I'm going to suggest with optimal settings, you might be knocking on the door of 70 acres an hour for fungicide. And here's what you're politely leading me to. The math suggests a herbicide might go down at 110 acres an hour. I'm not saying it's a great application, not at all. But I am saying that's the first time the math has touched what a field sprayer can do. And that's something to kind of sit back and go, oof, these are not going away. There's a greater potential now for them to be used for certain situations than there ever was.
Yeah. Hey, let's wrap it up and tackle the big question. That is, we're hearing reports, that applicators are using drones for application across Canada. Hearing, 1.5 million acres in Canada, 2025. I guess it's difficult to enforce or police. What needs to happen from your perspective, to catch up with the technology here? What are you hearing for 2026? Could we see movement at CFIA, applications, labels? What's up?
Let's put it in context. And I heard these numbers last week. China has over 300,000 drones spraying more than 50% of their agricultural land right now. That's a stunning number. As soon as the speaker said that, and he was one of the original developers of the first DJI drone, so I'm going to take it as close to fact. Dr. Steve Lee said the United States has 5% of that. It's about 15,000 drones. If I were to guess, I'd say Canada has 2,000 drones. We just don't know. They're not lawn ornaments. They're not just sitting there. I am aware of many people that are spraying with drones. I'm not going to judge whether they should be or not. Obviously, it's illegal. It's not my place. But I don't see that slowing down, Bern. I've been hearing reports of some custom applicators who are, out there selling their services with field sprayers being told, thanks, no, I've got a drone guy now. So what do we need? We need education fast. We already know something about drift, something about efficacy, something about residual. The pieces are falling into place. But what we need is just because I can fly this high and fast, should I? What are the optimal settings based on what I'm trying to achieve? And, we don't have a central source of that beyond the color brochure that comes with the drone, which I would advise people take with a whole salt lick, not just a grain of salt.
Well, hey, Jason, it's always great to talk drones. So dynamic, so much happening. I encourage everybody to check out Jason's presentation at the Ontario Ag Conference. We've just scratched the surface in this conversation right here. And for more information, we always check out more at Sprayers 101, correct?
Correct. And that new article I alluded to should be up by the time you hear this.
Great stuff, Jason. Always great to have you on Real Agriculture.
Thanks for your time, Bern.
For the latest ag news, agronomic advice, and more, check out realagriculture.com and Real Ag Radio.